Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night to everybody, depending on the place where you are connecting from. And welcome to our Safe Dev talk on the Digital Operational Resilience Act, or DORA, as we are going to delve into the challenges and the implications of DORA in the financial sector. We are going to review the complexity of the compliance and the risk management that requires enhancing this operational resilience and see how to fight against the increasing number of cyber attacks and threats that we are receiving today. Before continuing, let me introduce, first of all, Dominique Loislet, that is a seasoned cybersecurity consultant with a lot of background in crisis management, strategic planning, and compliance with the European regulations, such as DORA and NIS2. Has a very relevant leadership role in organizations like Symantec or Sangard, where he has provided a lot of enhancements in the security resilience across the European region. Also, we count today with Alexandra Charikova, okay, that brings a lot of dedication to cybersecurity from her role at Escape, where she creates impactful content and leads the podcast The Elephant in the AppSec. Her focus on application security challenges and education to the community, for sure, is going to provide a lot of insight, and in particular to the DORA broader impact. Myself, that I'm responsible of the product inside Jenny. I'm in contact with the customer and supporting them also to achieve or to implement these requirements and these improvements in the security. Welcome, Alexandra, Dominique.
Thank you.
Hi, Jesus. Very happy to be here, and thanks so much for the introduction. Super excited for this talk, and I hope our audience can actually learn a lot, and we get some probably questions as well. So hopefully we can answer all of them. Maybe some will be challenging.
Yeah, at least we do our best to do that.
For sure. Just to start, let's start with the more generic part. Let's start with the concerns and the pains in the organizations that are facing the DORA implementation. Okay, it's not just a topic of the complexity and the cost of the compliance. It has or need different set of things, like revamp systems, adopt new technologies, upscale and reskill the teams in charge of the security, and all these things. We have a lot of different frameworks with the important focus on the ICT risk assessment and the integration of the third-party risk management, that are probably the two more significant pillars in this regulation. Also, we have the thing is not to protect only against the security, but to change the way of facing this or managing this mentality and this mindset regarding the security, how we can integrate in the DNA of the organization and change the behavior and the way of thinking and all these things. According to your experience in consultancy, Dominique, in the other organizations, Alejandra, what do you think that is influencing this DORA regulation in the landscape of the financial regulations and the cybersecurity? The order as you prefer.
Yeah, so our organization should manage to deploy this regulation. I think it's really about leadership first. I think the most important thing is how you embed on board leadership within this DORA implementation within the organization. Well, something very new, I think, is DORA is a responsibility that is now over the head of the executive and leadership team. So this is really something that you need to start with. Then you cannot do everything at the same time when you are willing to deploy such a big compliance stuff. So you need to prioritize on stuff that really makes sense. So what is important is really to conduct your gap analysis first. Okay, and really understand where you are, what your position, and where you want to be, and then thanks to that, you can prioritize, you can phase your implementation, you can phase things that need to be done, but as nothing really new within DORA. DORA is a regulation, but a lot of things that are within this regulation are already existing. If you think about the 5-pillar risk management, incident reporting, resilience testing, a lot of things are already in. So you need to reuse all the existing frameworks that are already in use within organizations. This is a key part of a successful DORA deployment within organization. Then what I also think is absolutely critical for a successful deployment is to reuse what is already in play. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Okay, this is one point, and you need also to embed DORA within the existing governance structures that you have. Okay, you should not see that as something separate to the rest. It's need to be successful. It's really need to be embedded within the existing governance structures that is already in place within the entities, the financial entities, and last but not least, and it's probably one of the things that are very new for organizations is to include third parties in your risk assessment. We used to include some kinds of third party, when you were using cloud, or when you were using technologies that you delegate to someone else. Okay, but now it's more than that. It's really about third party. Everyone that is included or has an impact into your IT organization need to be included within your DORA deployment process. And for sure, as usual, it's a continuous monitoring and adaptation, because what is true today will not be true tomorrow, or maybe not be true tomorrow, and you continuously need to improve your alignment to those regulations. This is for me the key points that need to be taken into consideration when you are thinking about successfully deployed DORA within organization.
Yeah, I have to think I totally agree with Dominique about the impact of third parties and DORA. I think that's an essential step. Actually, looked up the numbers before our conversations. I think there are at least 22,000 financial institutions in Europe. So, and if you consider all the third parties that are working with them, it's the impact is huge, because all the collaboration that happens between the financial institutions, their vendors, and that will have to ensure the cybersecurity of these connections between them, that will need to start to monitor and secure them. So I think the overall impact and influence of this regulation is huge. And I think there is also huge emphasis on the data security as well. In DORA, I think in one of the articles, there is on the protection and the prevention, there is literally they show how you have to ensure data transfer security, minimize data related risks. So I think in general, data in Europe has been a very big focus, since the GDPR and everything. So now it's even more and more, and focus heavily on financial institutions and the transfer of data, and it'll have to be secure. So every customer of every partner, every vendor of the financial institution will have to will be impacted in some way by this regulation.
Yeah, and one thing I think very important to understand is DORA is not only about cyber. DORA is really how you can make sure that what's happened to your ICT will not disrupt your ability to deliver your services. It's not necessarily cyber. It can be electricity problems. It can be failure. It can be human problems. It can be human error. But everything that is related to ICT that can put your business at risk. We often look at DORA in the lens of the cybersecurity stuff, but cyber is just probably 20% of DORA. The rest, if you are talking about third-party assessment, if you are talking about those kind of stuff, it's not related to cyber at all. It's just related to the fact that your ICT may be, if they are breached, if they are under attack, or if they fell down, then they can put your business at risk. DORA is very cool. It's Digital Operational Resilience Act. Okay, it's not only cyber. NIS2 is cyber. DORA is not cyber only.
Yes, you have mentioned, both of you, a couple of things that is okay. It's not something that is completely new. And in this sense, for example, you have mentioned also the NIS2, and the thing is, some differences. For example, DORA applies to all size in companies. It doesn't care if they are very big, if they're small. They have different requirements depending on the size and the capability. I think this is something different from other regulation, no? Because all the regulations are always the same. And yes, as you mentioned also, it's not only a cyber security or cyber part, but the thing is the responsibility of implementing the DORA regulation is in the CISO of the company. That is responsible of the security, more or less.
It's more than the CISO. It's more than the CISO. It's really the executive level. You know, you can go up to the board. Those guys are accountable of ensuring that the organization is doing everything that they can to meet DORA requirement. It's not only the CISO, and it's very good question, Jesus, because often, you know, the board say we hire the CISO, we give them a budget, and now we have done. No, that's not enough. Now this is not enough. Now they are accountable, and they can be personally be made accountable in case of the organization not properly following DORA. It's the same for NIS2, by the way. Huh? It's a big changes compared to what was in the past. And another point that is very new compared to what was in the past. Usually, you know, all the organizations that was all the supervisory organization, in case of failure, had to prove that you are not meeting the expectation. Now this is the difference. You, as an organization, will have to prove that you comply to DORA. It's big change. You have to prove that you comply to DORA.
And for example, something that we are seeing, someone is asking also, is we have mentioned the third party. That is something new, and we are putting focus on the responsible or the impact of the regulation is in the company, is in the financial organization, but in the third party, we have also some kind of impact, because at the end, we are going to delegate or we are going to request certain capabilities, certain information, certain requirements we are going to extend in order to ensure the end-to-end regulation compliance and this kind of thing. So how do you think, or what do you think that is going to be the main impact in this third party that are not, for example, financial? I think Alexandra mentioned before, there are a lot of that, and there are a lot of providers that are not financial institutions that are going to be impacted also by this part. I don't know, Alexandra, for example, how do you see the impact in these third parties, if they are going to apply only a part, or they are working in some way, or?
I think it depends on the maturity of the third party, to be honest. It's not every third parties are on the same level of the maturity. I think a lot of companies still struggle with the basics of digitalization and security. So I think if for more mature third parties, for them it's the transition and to stay conformed with the regulation, it's going to be much easier because they already have automated solutions in place. They already have an auditing system in place, reporting system in place. So at least what they need to do is become more potentially efficient, because I remember in the case of, let's say, breach, you have just 1 month to get all information out. So they'll need to implement more automation on their side. While for less mature third parties, that's going to be a very big challenge. To be honest, and I've talked with some financial institutions within for the last months, and they are struggling. They're trying to implement things in place. A lot of things still are done manually. So in this case, their transformation will have to be very quick. And it will have to start, as Dominic said, it will have to be a little bit top down. So by actually taking people accountable at the top, at the board level, at the C level, they have to understand it first, and then the transformation might happen. And they can start implementing like continuous monitoring in place, or let's say automate their asset inventory, because right now, even if we talk about asset inventory or API inventory, so many things in Europe are still done manually, and there is a pushback when you want to implement automated solution, which I find personally surprising. But I hope the regulations like that will at least give it a push, And I think another impact that we might see is that I think DORA actually highlights the need for security policies, procedures, and this is something that that the third parties will need to also start implementing. I think overall, like if you speak about the trends throughout this year, like supply chain and threat modeling was a really huge trend and topic. I think in the past month,
I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking of a lot of things, a lot of new things, a lot of new activities. Probably is one of the most relevant challenges. Okay, that we have now to do a lot of more things that we have been done until now. Do you think, Alexandra, that this is really like just a new workload, or is just a way, because Dominic said before, several things are already done to be compliant with other regulation. Do you think that is just new workload, or is something more in the cultural part of the organization? How do you see that the organizations can face or can adopt, or
it's definitely not a quick fix. So I think, Dominic also said that it starts from the culture. And I don't think it's specifically, you shouldn't approach it as a new workload. I think it's more about the mentality of the organization and its culture. If you approach it as a workload, then everything that's related to security is going to feel like a dread. But if you actually approach it as something beneficial for your organization, because let's say if you have their more secure policies, tools, and procedures in place, then your organization can be less prone to the data breaches, so less prone to the damage of brand reputation, financial risk. If you think about those risks long term, you don't consider it as a workload, I think, per se. And if you put the right tools in place at the beginning, if you kind of at the beginning of everything, if you start actually from a good basis, it's going to be much easier. But it's not going to be a constant change. And of course, you have to prioritize. Eventually, you just need to you just need to find the right priorities for your organization, depending on the maturity level of your organization and depending on the structure. And actually, I think in this case, it has to be top down. it's not something that's going to start by let's say someone working on a GRC team or a security team that's going to come and say, hey, I want to be compliant to DORA, let's change completely the whole culture in our place. It's not gonna happen.
And Dominique, that you have been collaborating and supporting companies to implement and to improve the compliance in general. How do you think that is the best way, or the organizations can merge or can integrate these DORA requirements in the already existing risk management plans or the way of working that they already have with the third party?
Yeah, I think first we need to come back to one point. All third party are not should not be considered the same way. Okay, you first need to understand what are critical business. So critical business is, if the business stop, you will have a huge impact on your P&L, on your reputation, etc., etc. So which are the applications that are critical to you, and which are the third parties that are involved in this application? All the other, we don't really care, by the way. Okay, so it's first thing. Then within the third parties, there is two types of third party, because DORA is a regulation. That means the European Union, the entities that have works on DORA force a lot of things. They define through RTF and ITS exactly what need to be done and how it need to be done, and they have defined a list of strategic providers: Microsoft, AWS, Forcepoint, all those kind of big names, Cisco, Fortinet, all those guys are considered by the European Union as strategic provider, and they will be under control by the European Union. Okay, so as an organization, I won't have to audit AWS to make sure that AWS is compliant. Okay, and thanks God. Okay, and so all the big one, and it's a huge list. It's a few hundreds of those that will be under control by European Union, at least to understand if they are doing proper risk assessments, if they are compliant, if they have the right proper certification. All that stuff will be done. So only the one that you are using for your critical business that are not in the list of the strategic provider defined by the European Union will have to be taken into consideration. Then the first things that need to be done is not technical, it's legal. It's regarding the contract. Okay, you need, and DORA force you to review all the contract you have with your providers, working on your strategic application, to ensure stuff like exit strategy, contingency plan, what's happened when you will be leaving. If you need to quit this provider, how can you be able to roll back and get everything? Is there an alternative providers? How do you retrieve your data when if for one reason or another the relationship with this provider? So first thing is really contractual, and the RTS and the ITS defined by the European Union that has been published in July are very clear, explaining exactly what you need to do and to have in your contract. So first, it's a huge one. Because you need to review all the contract you have with your providers, and you need to review all the contractual clause. You need to make sure that you have SLA. You need to make sure that you have audit rights. You should be able to audit your provider, etc., etc. So this is very important. And then for the other, you are responsible to include them when you are doing your threat assessment. Okay, when you are when you will be doing your threat assessment, or when you will be doing your risk assessment, you need to include them within the process, which is very important.
It's more. I think you need to find a way to automate this eventually. I think once, because reviewing the contracts, it's something that has to be done manually, and it's not really, doesn't sound like super fun job, maybe for some, but at least
it's something I was to mention, because, for example, Dominic mentioned at the beginning the gap analysis, and you mentioned the inventory of all the assets. Probably because our nature, we are more close to the part of the software development in the organizations, but the traditional solutions has inventor, the laptops, the mobile phones, all the equipment, all the things. But the thing is, regarding the software, when they develop software, they usually don't have an inventory of all the software assets, all the components from third parties, all the pipelines, all the processes, all the policies applying to the security of the processes. Doing this manually, that is the way to usually they have been doing until now in an Excel file or whatever. Is a nightmare. Just to calculate the impact of a vulnerability in one library could take 1 year to discover all the applications impacted, for example. So the only way to do this is automating all the assessment, all the inventory, all the things in a regular way in order to ensure this continual management. And is critical in the third parties when we use components from third parties, open source or from another, because you have to manage all the vulnerabilities and to ensure this contract with the third party that in order to measure, because the other way is I measure once a year, but then the following releases can break this contract and this quality. So we have to find automatic ways to control continually in each release, in each step in the software, in the process, to ensure that the quality and the security contract is achieved. So yeah, it's
and for every single provider that is involved with critical function of your business, you need to keep a risk register for each of them, and you need to keep a register. It maybe remind you something, because
centralized point,
you need to follow a lot of you need to maintain a lot of registers, a risk registers with your but DORA is a big one. The register that is defined by the ITS and RTS in DORA are big ones. So a lot of questions, a lot of things to understand. So and it is very critical when it is not for a critical third-party provider as defined by the European Union, because you need to do the job.
And I agree with you. I think on the criticality part, I think you need to define it will help also with priorities. Something happen, what are third-party providers are the most critical, the most important. And for example, if we spoke at the beginning about the data part, I think it's a bit easier to automate potentially all the asset management of all your applications rather than the actual physical things. So it will be easier to start actually with the asset management of this part, and especially if you talk about, for example, APIs that transfer the data that needs to be secured under DORA. That's something that's going to be very important. So that's automated API inventory. It's something actually financial institutions start to think about, at least the ones that I spoke with in the Netherlands or in France. They start with that, and as you mentioned, like in the beginning, you have the workload and everything. At least start there. Start with your applications, so it feels a little bit at least where they already started with more mature organizations, and then kind of perform this automated discovery and risk assessments, and kind of assign the risk based on the sensitive data that flows through that programming interface. So it will help you to also prioritize the criticality of your third-party risk vendor. So if there is a more critical data that flows from a third party to your organization, it will help you to understand your priorities, where you need to, for example, fix the vulnerabilities, or let's say if your development team works on those applications, that you really need to educate them first on the third-party risk, because when they collaborate with this third party, it's actually the most critical for your organization. I think that's where potentially you should start.
Yeah.
Great. And for the APIs, sorry, Dominic, go ahead.
but especially when you have one third party that is delivering a service that is unique on the market. No one else is doing that. And if it's a function that supports a critical business for you, this is a very high risk. You never know what happens. If it fails, it can be a nightmare. So this is part of all this review process. It's not only reviewing the contract, it's also reviewing the market, making sure that if my solution fail, I will find another one able to deliver something similar, or that can replace, etc. That I will be able to retrieve my data. That I will be, and this is something that is very big for a financial organization at the moment within DORA. When we talk about risk management, incident reporting, I think it's quite usual. Okay, there is some different stuff, but it's financial industries are very much aware of that. But when you're talking about third-party risk management, third-party, not outsourcing, but third-party risk management, including consulting, by the way, we are part somehow. It's a huge part of the difficulties that organization may be facing with DORA at the moment.
There is a way, going to the detail of this third party and how to manage the risk and how to control the potential impact of breach or an issue, whatever. For example, just to put some example in our side, we manage the third-party open source component that is used in the applications, and to prevent any malware infection or any risk entering in the application, we proactively analyze these components and to raise some issue proactively before using in the build process of the software, for example, to detect anything in advance and these kind of things. In the API, for example, that you were mentioning, Alexandra, I think that is easy, or I don't know, is also more or less similar to the software part. So you can automate all this part of managing this. I don't know if there is some mechanism to be proactive in the avoid using an API if detect some risk, or I don't know if there is some kind of mechanism to control or to ensure the security in this part. And then, Dominique, the other part that is not software or the other parts of the contract, I don't know if there is a way to continually monitor, or is the traditional way to, from time to time, do some checks or whatever. I don't know your view in this way to ensure that in the time, we ensure that everything is working.
No, it's a little bit too new to know exactly how things will be done. I know a lot of organizations are struggling at the moment to review all the existing contracts. But this started years ago, because this part was known 2 years ago when DORA was launched. So, and it's probably the reason why a lot of providers have seen their contract reviewed by the financial industries. But the reality is, what is true today, it will maybe not be true tomorrow. So it will be a continuous circle of improvement, check, and see if what was in the contract signed 2 years ago is still valid, is still up to date today. So it's like the rest of what we are talking today. It's a improvement circles that need to be done, because the technology is evolving very fast. Everybody knows that, and what is true today will not be true tomorrow. And someone, a provider can be may have a few competition today and be the only one on the market tomorrow. We never know. And that means it is I think the good practices would be to have on a yearly basis a kind of review of at least a key contract with third parties. Maybe and probably more with the one that are not part of the critical third party, because with Oracle, with Microsoft, with AWS, okay, you know where you are, and you know that what's in your contract should be okay. But more with the other one that are critical to you, and maybe critical only for you, and you are maybe the only one that are checking them.
It actually could be a very interesting idea to create a tool that be like AI powered, I don't know, that reviews all the contracts and tells you whether it's DORA compliant or not. And then continuously new regulation comes out. And
idea, Alexandra, thanks.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, the other important pillar or more relevant pillar, I think, is the digital operational resilience, the part of the testing. That this means that I can to improve, or I can to check continually and to improve and to validate and continually do all these ways to ensure that everything continue working, even in case of any issue, any type of thing. So I think that this introduced a lot of new testing or new test capabilities, because until now we have something that is more punctual, but now we have this continual capacity of testing in the, I don't know, in the infrastructure, I don't know how to monitor. In the API, we have new tools that are continually inventorying, testing, and doing things. In the software part, the thing is we introduce a lot of new tests, secrets, vulnerabilities in the code, vulnerabilities in the pipeline. So we have like a lot of new automated tools that are continually monitoring, reviewing, checking against the security policies, immediately raise an issue if something is not compliant with the policy that we have defined. How do you see this part of the resilience part and the way to improve this pillar?
Oh, this is. Oh, sorry, Alexandra.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I think in general, on the resilience part, in terms of the testing, as you mentioned, we have to start testing more and more earlier because right now I think we're still, despite everything that's been told in the space, a lot of testing is reactive. So we're kind of late on it. Everything is already deployed in production, list on application security side of things. And I think we need to adapt more the mentality of starting even before actually deployment by adapting the mentality of educating, say, on the third-party risk, everyone in the company, and then start testing before you can actually deploy and implement different continuous tests to ensure this operational resilience, and use potentially the tools that actually help you to learn continuously from your mistake, from things that you need to fix, from things that are not compliant. Because sometimes I think the mentality is quite often, okay, I fix something on the left side of things, and then I forget, and then I don't learn, and then it happens again and again and again, and then you're just wasting a lot of time. So I think that's something that really needs to be improved for organizations to be more resilient, despite just producing the reports when something happens.
Mm-hmm. Dominique, you were.
I think what Alexandra is absolutely right, and I think it's extremely important. But I would add that it's a point that DORA put a huge pressure on financial organization. Those organizations used to do some risk-based testing or tasting. They know that, okay, and they do that for years. But now DORA define and describe clearly how they should do it. And it should be what we call the risk-based testing approach. So once again, we identify the critical system and we prioritize on those ones. But what is very important is we need to comply to something called the I don't know if you're already aware of TIBER, which is threat intelligence based on ethical red team, which is a European framework. And the largest organization in Europe will have to comply or to do at least every 3 years a test based on TIBER. And test done by TIBER means test done by external organization. It's not only possible for the largest organization in financial industry to do their own tests with their own team. They need to work with external red team, certified red team for sure, but also with the for in France as an example, it would be Cyber.fr, which is managed by Banque de France, and they will tell Société Générale or BNP, whatever the bank name is, what type of threat test will have to be done. Okay, so this is very, very important for them. It's just to understand that they are not allowed anymore to do their own test with their own red team. They can keep their red team, but they will have to run at least every 3 years an external threat-based test using external organization, and this will be very, very strategic for organization to really comply to DORA, but it's also good because that means they will have to work with external threat intelligence. They will have to work with external red teams. They will have to learn with the Cyber.fr for France as an example, and those guys have a view of the risk of the threats that they have met in other parts of these industries. So it will be extremely positive for organization, and it will be positive for the entire European Union to get a global view of what will happen. So, but this need to be understood. This need to be prepared. It will be extremely invasive for the organization, and this should be on top of what Alexandra mentioned. I mean, a regular audit of everything that those organizations who are used to audit. Including not only software, not only cyber, but everything that is involved to deliver services, including third parties.
And yeah, with third parties, this is very interesting. And the other type of testing that also, I think, something new is the anomaly detection, right? Because it's something regarding that, okay, everything works in this way, and you have to monitor anything that could sound anomaly to detect everything in advance, for example, of this kind of thing. So this is also something that requires not only probably artificial intelligence or something like that in order to find the patterns and to find the expected behavior of the deviation from this part, but also gathering a lot of information to define the models and to define these activities. Do you think that this is easy to implement in all organizations? I don't know if they are prepared or is related with the data that you mentioned, Alexandra, before, because you need a lot of data, you need security on the data, then you can exploit the data and the infrastructure to do all that. I don't know. Some company that is a medium company or a small company, for example, could be a challenge. I don't know if there is any standard tool to implement these activities or these kind of things.
I think any change is never easy to implement. I think it's just very hard to implement something when the organization is used to doing things a certain way, especially in the large enterprises, which are usually financial institutions are with a traditional mindset. And I think it's easier to implement when the whole culture of the company is around it. And as we mentioned at the beginning, when Dominique also mentioned, when it comes from the board, from C-level, then it's a bit easier. It's frustrating when it's imperative, but it's a bit easier. But otherwise, we can try to implement something, but actually implementing something or proposing to implementing something is quite easy. But actually following up on it, whether or not it's being followed, that's the hard part.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, especially as technology is evolving, And when you run tests on traditional IT technologies is one point. Now with AI everywhere, it will be very, very different. You won't be able to manage your tests, your evaluation the same way. There is a lot of things new that is happening. I mean, what you ran a year ago should be totally a review before you run it in the year after. So it's tough.
Yeah. Okay, we are reaching the time we have. I don't know, probably to start with some closing takeaways, ideas, or probably your. Sorry, Alexandra.
Are there any questions maybe that we can reply from the audience? Because I can't see them. I saw some popping up on the screen, but I'm not sure.
I don't see. Well, I think that there are some comments, but I think that the questions probably we have answered them.
Let me see. I think there was only one question, but if we've answered them, what are the impact of what is the impact of DORA on third and fourth parties? Actually, no, there are a lot of comments, but I guess we need to go through them. So I think there is an interesting question. I don't know if, Dominic, you have an answer to that. If the US bank is doing business in the EU, does it have to be compliant with DORA or not?
Yes. Yeah. If they have customers in Europe and if you are doing business in Europe, they will have to be at least for that. At least for as far as I know, DORA is not 100% finalized. So it's in force only in January 2025. But at the moment, every financial institution that are doing business in Europe will have to comply to DORA, at least for their perimeters. And it's the same. It's the same for organizations in Europe that have subsidiaries in Africa or in Asia. Or they will have to comply to DORA.
Okay, there is another question here that is if someone wants to begin learning DORA or explore how to approach it, do you have some tip or any trick to share with them?
So there is within the ASA website all the RTF and ITS, or RTF regulation, technical standards, and ITS implementation technical standard. You have a description of everything that need to be done, but it's a long document to read.
And I think one of the maybe another points that I always hear in the community about learning how to deal with actually like regulations is going to local meetups and or to the events and actually talking with other professionals, let's say how they've implemented it in their organization, because you have less mature and more mature organizations. So if you have for example joining the event and you meet someone else from a financial institutions who may be more mature, you can ask them and learn from them. And I think it's always a great example how to also do and not do things, to be honest.
I would say that taking into account the timing and that we are a bit in a hurry, probably search support from someone that has experience instead of start learning now, because in order to accelerate the process as much as possible and going to the specific points or the most relevant points for the organization.
And on top of that, I think if you already use some framework like NIST, if you are using ISO 27001, if you are already using this kind of framework, you will be very close. So no, DORA doesn't reinvent a lot of things. Huh? It's just a clarification and an enforcement to do stuff. But it's mainly, if you think the two first pillars are very, very close to what a NIST cybersecurity framework will already request you to do. Huh? If you are using COBIT, if you are using this kind of framework, your ETL, it won't be a long job to be compliant to DORA.
We have another question regarding tools. If there is some tool that could support starting doing these approaches. I don't know any tool that do everything regarding DORA, because there are several tools for different things and you have to select each one of them for the different ways and to integrate in your risk management plan. It's just an extension or a process of selection, but it's not a tool for DORA as a whole. No?
I think Vanta actually says that they're doing that as a part of their advanced framework, but I'm not sure how deep you go actually, what kind of reporting you're getting on that.
The second batch of ITS RTS has been made public mid of July. So I will be very doubtful that those RTS or ITS can already be included in any kind of frameworks or tools or stuff like that. Huh? It's too new.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I may be wrong.
Regarding API testing and automatic testing for the API and the resilience testing, I don't know, the API, Alexandra, do you have more recommendation or more things?
Resilience testing and API testing are not specifically the same things. Regarding API testing, I think you should start in any case from automated API inventory, because if you can't really start securing something without knowing what you have to secure, without knowing the criticality of what you have to secure, and you have to build in both an inventory of internal, external, and third-party APIs, and I think that's where you should start and use automated and continuous tools for that scan APIs also exposed externally, because quite often a lot of tools are using actually API, they scan API traffic, but then you can only discover APIs behind API gateway. So if you want to work with everything that's your developers deploy, so start with a tool that helps you to build this agentless API inventory, and after that, for the security testing, start to do the testing pre-deployment. Do not only implement the tools when it's actually already live and the traffic process through that, but actually start testing in the deployment and pre-deployment and staging. And then, of course, the tool that you use, it has to show you the compliance. I think that's very important with the frameworks. As Dominic said, for DORA, it's early here, but at least what you can start with is NIST. You can start with even the basics like OWASP Top 10, and your tool has to show you this compliance with these frameworks and in a user-friendly way, and being able actually to help you fix the issues that are surfaced that when you're not complying, and quite often you're not compliant if you have vulnerabilities that might have a risk of sensitive data. exposure, but I think we're definitely in 2024 not at the point of trying to do things by hand.
From my side, for example, before the production part, before the APIs, all the software development lifecycle, from the code until the delivery, before getting the APIs, there are a lot of different also automated testing, because you have a lot of potential ways of being attacked from insiders, third-party components with malicious code, and a lot of things. So there are testing for secrets in order to detect secrets that is a breach of data. You have ways to check all the vulnerabilities in the components, all capabilities to detect malware, everything regarding anomaly detection of the teams doing, or for example, if someone have the credential of a developer and attempt to access to the systems to modify the application, all these kind of things can be automated. Also, the protection of the pipelines and even the build process of the applications in order to detect that someone has modified the way you integrate all the pieces in order to put a backdoor or a malware or whatever there. All these capabilities in all the process of developing and building and delivering the software is completely automated in today. So there are a lot of capabilities also there. I don't know if there is any other question. Let me check. No more questions. So now, yes, I don't know, Dominique, Alexandra, thank you very much for your contributions. I don't know if you can summary 3 takeaways of your main ideas that you consider the most important things for the audience in order to allow them to take these 3 ideas and your time.
Thanks to you, Jesus, and thanks everyone for participating.
Okay.
And Alexandra.
Thank you. And I think top 3 ideas that everyone can. I think the main idea is please start now.
Yeah.
That's
way
kind
more, yeah.
the main idea that was actually appearing throughout this talk, and that it's because it is very critical and it is important. And please, I think, start actually documenting your third-party vendors. Start from there, and secondly, assess their criticality, and at least get those bases straight, and then implement continuous testing.
Yeah.
And my third things, if I can, is first sure to board your leadership team. If you have not your leadership team supporting you, you will never succeed. Second is don't reinvent the wheel. There is a lot of things that already exist, and you need to reuse what is already in play. And the third, prioritize. Don't want to do everything at the same time. Make sure to understand which are your critical businesses, which are your critical application, and put the focus on those ones. I think those are the 3 main topics I will suggest you to keep in mind when you start working on DORA.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very few to add. Automation is critical. Prioritization in order to go step by step and facing the most important things. And something that Alexandra also mentioned at the beginning, the inventory of the things is really fundamental in order to being able to prioritize and to assess the security of each one in order to see how to proceed, or what are the things to ensure the compliance part. So nothing else. A pleasure to be with you, Dominique, Alexandra. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to everybody that attended to today. I hope that it was useful for you, and you have some ideas and some new practical tips in order to apply from today, as Alexandra mentioned. Start now, and we'll see in the next Safe Talk. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.